Welcome to Speak Sex. I'm your host, Steve Eurydice. I'm your sex whisperer here in the podcast universe. And our episode today is going to focus on conscious unions, on, finding a way to take everything that we discuss on this podcast and meet your beloved with it in consciousness, in conscious space. So we've talked a lot about tantra, about slowing the fuck down, about kind of turning sex, the way that you experience sex and relationship and intimacy, into a life hack, so that by shifting just a little bit the way you experience one another in sexual exchange or sacred energy exchange, then your whole life turns around. And I feel that sex is one of the easiest ways to do it because it actually has not been prescribed for us in advance. So, everything up to the sex act, we have been told what to do, including seduction and, advertise your best self and, the whole thing, the eyes and, the vow, whatever. But then, it's the two bodies, the lights are off, and there is no script, the Matrix has not given us that script. It's all silence. And, traditionally, the man was supposed to know what to do, because he has the penis. So he's supposed, and the woman was supposed to just receive and hope for the best. But that's the script we got. Yeah. So it's only in the last, I don't know, since the 60s, literally, that we have been learning more. I mean, it's extraordinary to me that in this one generation, basically, we've learned so much, I mean, when my mom never heard the word clitoris, for sure, and now, we know that, women can have 7 different orgasms. I mean, it's just, so that's the good news, that things are, progressing, evolving, and also, we find ourselves in this, amazing moment where we all agree that, women give verbal consent, which, even the understanding of date rape and husband and wife, marital rape, was impossible 50 years ago. There was no word for it. So yeah, I feel we're quickly going into this Aquarian age and consciousness and kind of shifting around our vocabulary and finding words for things that we didn't have words and descriptions and definitions of. So I would like to, I will briefly introduce you, and then I will ask you a little bit about your personal story and then how you met. So with me today is Jeanette Rios. She is a spiritual life coach and the founder of I Am Sacred, and she also holds and leads a circle of women, which is actually the biggest circle of women in Miami, called I Am Sacred, which I attend when I can. And it's beautiful. And her husband, as of 1 year, right? You were married more or less? Yeah, recently, right.
Yeah.
Brandon Evans, he is the founder of 1Heart, and which is a company that inspires and guides world leaders, business leaders. I guess I'm going to say leaders in every industry to take time off from workaholic lifestyle, maybe, and the need to kind of go and control, right, and slow down and change the way they live their lives, and I assume lessen their stress levels, and expand their awareness by taking trips to Costa Rica and other places where they do ceremony, right?
Yeah, okay.
Medicinal plants and
plant medicine,
other
all different types of modalities.
Yeah, modalities, exactly. Yeah.
Yoga, meditation, workshops, whole gamut of stuff. Yeah.
So the main job is to translate. Like you're translating us, the spiritual folk, into a language that, 10 people, tech people, and type A people can speak, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Acting as a bridge and bringing our world, bringing our leaders to elevate themselves, their consciousness, so what they create in the world, takes into account that consciousness and raises the vibration of everything around them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That seems like super important in today's world because, without that, climate change is just going to get worse and, we don't hear each other. So
there's a lot of brilliant people that are being woken up now, and it's just beautiful to think what they'll create when they are.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's the hope, that the leaders of today and then the children of tomorrow will be more evolved and conscious and patient. So, and what about you, Jeanette? So, what's your journey?
My journey is, it's been a journey of self-love, basically. I moved here probably 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. And I got swallowed by Miami life. And
you didn't go asexual. No, I know that's very unusual. I'm like, of all places, you did that in Miami Beach. What?
Right.
That's cool.
And I moved here with not knowing a single soul, and then eventually I started meeting friends and good people, the extreme of people. But they all had one thing in common, and that was to party in Miami. It's like the lifestyle. It's the thing to do. And then I started meeting guys here. And I started dating men in the nightlife business. So you would find me at the clubs. You would find me at these restaurant bars. I thought I was in a serious relationship with men who were in relationship with other women at the same time. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's very familiar.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So basically, in a nutshell...
Same rite of passage.
Yeah. And coming from Texas, it's very weird. It was very, not weird, it was very strange for me to be in these kind of situations. So it started to eat away at my self-confidence, my self-worth. I thought maybe I just wasn't pretty enough or good enough.
And you're gorgeous. For those who are not seeing you.
I concur.
I was always comparing myself to everybody here. I ended up getting a boob job. I felt like everyone was doing it. It was acceptable here. It was not something you do in Texas.
Oh, I know. Here, I don't have one, but I'm a very rare exception. It's like, what's wrong with you, girlfriend? Like,
why don't you have your boobs done? Yeah, it's so normal. So I thought that would boost my confidence, but that it really didn't. It was all
make a profound difference. Yeah.
I was looking for love outside of myself, and I ended up losing my dog of 12 and a half years. And that's kind of when I hit rock bottom, because she was my only friend here, not my only friend, but
like your family, your familiar one.
I didn't have anyone else here. Yeah. I ended up going through a breakup that same week that she died, and I fell into this depression, and I ended up getting sick. The feelings that I had for myself, the insecurity, it all basically manifested into physical form, and I was full on autoimmune disease for about 3 years.
Wow. And there was a name for it, or they weren't sure what you...
I had candidiasis. So it's an overgrowth of candida in your body.
Right.
We all have candida, but this was it's in disease form, so it's everywhere you could imagine.
Right.
And it made me very insecure, and I couldn't speak to a boyfriend about it, or they just thought she doesn't want to sleep with me, probably. You know, there was flare-ups. It was very hard.
So your body was talking to you and expressing
to
truth, and but it took you time to listen.
Yeah. So then I thought, okay, you know, I started pleading with the universe. I fell to the floor. I was in surrender mode to God, universe, whatever you want to call it. And I was just asking to please help. And then I was online. I stumbled across an ad that said, become a health coach. And so I was like, okay, the universe is talking to me. And I signed up. And then 6 months into the program, I realized that it wasn't just diet or exercise, or I was basically self-hating. And that's what was creating this disease to happen in my body. So I changed the way I started new rituals. I started different practices, started loving myself, talking to myself in the mirror, saying, I love you, you're worthy. And then I cured myself from my disease. And everything just started opening up. It was like that divine alignment to source, to God. I was single for a little while, which helped a lot. And then I found my husband. He just walked into my life. You know, it took that look in the mirror of I love you and you are worthy and you are worth it, in order to attract that same in return. You know, because for so long I was, you're looking not
for
worth
validation
it.
outside yourself.
So all the guys that were coming into my life were the complete opposite, but they were me. I was looking at myself. So things just started opening up. I met him.
Also, like when you give up, you know, like being asexual for a year or even for a short time, you know, it's part of like giving up the expectation of like performance or a goal. You know, I'm going to find myself a man or whatever the goal might be. I will raise the, you know, the capital. And then when you no longer have that expectation, somehow, and you know, there is no explanation why, but like somehow most of the time, you're more productive and you do get what you hope for. And it's because you're not forcing it. So it's kind of like the, you know, the least effort gives the greatest reward. You can figure that out.
Well, we spend a lot of our lives chasing short-term fulfillment, and so you can't really work on yourself. You can't work on the long term. You can't allow the space for that to come in, because we're just on to the next.
Right. The short attention span. I do feel, and I'm digressing for a second, but I do feel that our biggest problem now, or maybe like our main currency, is not even money, but it's time, you know. And the way that we live shrinks time, makes it, you know, smaller and smaller and smaller. So the fact that so many people, you know, have anxiety, you know, and the symptomology of the masses right now is exactly that you feel that there is just not enough time. But like, stress. We're doing it, you know, we could just as easily like, you know, not do some things, you know, it's like the fear of missing out or whatever, all of this stuff, you know, but it's completely, you know, arbitrary and voluntary. Like no one is going to die, you know, if they slow things down or take a break. And it's living in the present moment. That's part of the journey. It's an acceptance of that. I do have an autoimmune disease. I just got my heart broken. I lost my job, whatever it is that you're going through. But how can I put love and gratitude on this moment? How can I see it for what it's teaching me, and just to be grateful in that time? Instead, I think most people just spiral down and attract the complete opposite. So it's being present moment, and I'm still learning that all the time. You know, let's come back to right here, right now, instead of
projecting the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy when I have.
Right.
It's like, I'm happy right now.
Yeah. 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 And again, I think that, for so long we were in survival mode, but like not any longer. But that's where that came from, in human history and prehistory. But I think that, it simply takes stopping, like for a second, again, like kind of stopping time for a couple of seconds to check in. And then you can come back. Yeah, yeah. That's like what we call consciousness or expanding consciousness. Yeah.
Being mindful.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. In whatever. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a simple thing to do if you can make like a habit of it and not, be so like reactive. Yeah, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you met, fell in love, and he proposed, or what happened? Did you?
A few times.
Did you? That's cute.
Yeah, a few times. We met. We had our first date, 2 weeks later, and we were inseparable since then. I knew from a very early on point that he was my twin soul. And that is a whole story in itself. It's definitely a ride. It's a roller coaster, but it's worth it. And
well, okay. What do you mean?
So the twin soul journey you're meeting yourself in the mirror. Everything that you love about yourself, everything you don't love in that time, in that moment, it's presented to you. And it's still presented to us all the time. He is my twin soul. So everything that's coming up for me, it's like, okay, it's something that I need to reflect upon within myself. So it's the most challenging relationship, they say. So this isn't a soulmate where they come in and out, or they come in for a short period. This is someone you've always come time and time again to meet. We had a soul contract before we came here to find each other and to keep each other accountable. So we have a similar mission. It's like, this is how we're going to evolve and how we're going to bring in also a new generation to life. Yeah. We're both leaders and community builders. So
and introverts.
And also, and introverts. Yeah. Believe it or not, we are very introverted.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I'm introverted, and people are like, "No way!" I'm like, "Yes."
We need that time to recharge. We see a lot of people all the time, and as healers, we need that recharge battery time, crystal time, and comfy couch time.
Yeah, well, definitely, people. There are all these myths about everything in life, and that's you just touched upon so many. It's like the woman finds the prince, from age 3 with the storybooks, and then the prince sweeps her off and he saves her, and she doesn't have another war in the world, So it's just like there's all of this
fantasy,
of this archetypal propaganda that we grow up with, and then you gotta put it aside. So
absolutely.
That's why you meet each other again and again, because each time you're making up the space, because it's not the space that you were taught. But the space that feels truthful.
Yeah, so and I feel
there's a creative part. There's a creative aspect to this type of relationship. You're creating the space for you too.
And in this day and age, people just think it's easier to divorce. It's like, oh, we just don't match. We don't fit, right? So it's easy to just call it quits.
Yeah.
A mindful, conscious couple will give each other time and space to realign, to come back to each other, to come back to your heart. I mean, that's a conscious.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Twin soul couple.
Yeah,
and there's nothing is perfect, but it's perfect. It's perfect the way it is. It's just so. So
did you negotiate before the wedding, or did you just agree that you will keep renegotiating forever? Huh?
No real negotiation, I think. It's been a ride. I mean, we just kind of flowed with it a lot. I mean, I think after a month, I sort of proposed to her for the first time on the phone.
Yeah.
We were talking,
This is my
yeah, I came back
ring
from our first 1Heart retreat, and I brought her that because basically told her I was going to marry her. And then soon after, she actually ended up losing her corporate job and moved in, and then about a year into our relationship, we were actually on the second 1Heart retreat, or maybe 9 months. I guess it was about 9 months later, and I actually proposed to her on the retreat. Didn't have a ring, didn't have it planned, but just proposed to her. Actually, during a ceremony. And again, I said, I'm going to marry you. And she said, I know. And I'm like, I'm serious. And
I know.
Yeah.
And so, got back and bought the ring, and then actually gave her the ring and proposed again at Love Burn a year after we had met. So I think that was all the proposals. Or was there another one?
Yeah, that's nice.
And then married in 3 months from then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
By our
shaman.
Well, I feel, I'm not big on government participating in marriage personally, but I do feel that like being in ceremony and sacred space and feeling I want to marry you, that's like how it should be for everyone. Yeah. And that, that kind of like connection, has
Sacred
to be
meaning.
right, exactly, sacred about whatever every person's, idea of something greater than just the self is.
Yes.
There. Yeah. So, and that's where like, divorce and all of that comes in, because divorce is very much about, the law and the state entering your union, your kind of like love and spirit, contract and turning it into, a financial proposition or a business proposition, which I think it kind of corrupts the whole notion, at least now, at this stage. At this stage in America, at this moment in America.
At this moment.
Yeah. So you are then monogamous or?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I believe, in my belief, I feel the union it's extremely sacred, and it would only be between us. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So.
And you want to have children?
We do.
I hope you do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
we're working on babies.
Yeah.
Now. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I hope
very
you
exciting.
do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But also the most important thing we can do, I feel, in this whole conversation that we're all trying to have, about consciousness and, change in the way that, turning around, the stuff that we were taught. The most important is raising children in a better way, in an evolved way. So they don't need to do all the work that we have had to do to kind of like unlearn and literally like, break everything apart and put it back together again,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the work.
Yeah. And it's hard because there's so many structures, and we talk a lot about living in Costa Rica, because you really, almost need a clean break from a lot that's here. Because even as parents, you can do a lot for your kids, but the schools are going to, the people that are around, the TV,
the children too.
There's so much here that it's difficult to break through.
Social media, the internet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I found as a parent, it was always like walking the thin line where I had to give her, 2 explanations at all times once she started school. Before then, she was just like a child of light, which is her name, and she'd do my yoga with me. She came with me wherever, like in a your bag. I didn't even have a stroller. We were in one person. So she participated in everything, museums, movies, staff meetings. I used to write for Spin then, whatever. It was, she was there. But then with the school, I found exactly that, I had to then say things, kind of like explain things twice, which was complicated for her to understand that this is how like we see things, but this is how like the other kids or the other moms see things, and you have to be like comfortable and fluent in both. Otherwise you're gonna be an outlier and you're gonna be a misfit, and I don't want like my choices to inform yours, right? In that because the overall society is so unlike my choices. So it gets complicated, giving like what you feel is truth, and then at the same time, allowing them to fit in as much as possible, so they have, so they don't feel like punished,
right.
socially. I mean, I remember even, like, because I paint nudes, and, the little kids like age 3 or 4 would come in for a play date, and they'd be like, oh my God, there is a naked lady. We were not, like, we weren't even aware. Yeah, we didn't even see it. It's just like representations of the body, is the basis of art. That's why we make art, to represent the fertile female body, whatever.
Right.
But, like, so like it started and it went on all the way through high school. Now college is better because like they they get a little more enlightened after high school. But it's difficult,
Yeah, that was kind of my journey because, my mother was raised Pentecostal Christian.
Right,
so
I remember.
the long hair, no makeup, long skirts. She actually didn't even dance with my father or her father on her wedding, and she didn't wear makeup either. So coming from that, and then my dad was Catholic. And
that was in Texas?
This is in Texas. So as a child, we never spoke about sex or the reproductive system, or I think I learned it for the first time maybe in high school. And so as a child, I was very curious. I'm a Cancer. I'm a little light being, very curious, very sexual. I would go and I would sneak in like Cinemax or HBO at 2, 3 in the morning just because I was curious about what sex was and what are these hormones that I feel? What are these feelings? And I had nobody to talk to about it. And so a few times my mom came in and she found me,
masturbating,
touching myself. And for her it's bad. It's a sin. And she made me feel very bad for it. And I'm very open about it now because this is one of the reasons why I have my circle and why, it's affected me for a very long time. Actually, it affected me up until I met my husband because of our sacred union. It just opened the veil of my vagina and my motherly feminine feelings. And through that, I birthed creativity and I birthed more of a spiritual connection. And that's how I want to raise my children, where they don't feel ashamed. And, our parents did the best they could. I mean, I don't blame anything on my parents. I love them. They're amazing. And they just do what they know, So it's just... it's good to talk about this. It's good to put it out there so people can also just start talking to your children about these things because they're curious and they want to know and they're going to be touching themselves. It's better that you're talking to them about it than
they go to look at porn. Well, it has to be porn. It's you or because there's nothing else. Like teachers, there's no system educational, like official, education on sex, other than like those really lame movies.
Really lame or really lame porn.
I mean, my mom was, she got married. Like my father asked for her hand from her father, who agreed, right? So she was 18 and she was a virgin. She'd never seen a man naked, Right. I don't know how that's sex and not rape. But anyway, that's like that was the typical wedding night for generations, back then.
Yeah.
And she never had a job. She never had a bank account. She never drove. She was like a wallflower.
Yeah.
And she was like an amazing cook, and she was beautiful, and like all the things. Yes, super loving. And she's an Aquarius, so she did have an independent spirit despite all of this extreme, restriction. But it's pretty extraordinary considering where you and I are now at this moment.
I know the
generation these are our mothers.
jump.
Yeah, and like it literally will take one more generational jump like this, and I feel like everything will be much more even and inclusive. And I think that it will be much better for men too. Because like. I feel that we are repressed, like the way your mother, or my mother had no connection to their bodies and, were afraid of them. They were basically like split. Yeah. So like the sense of self or I or soul had nothing to do with like who they were, the parts that made them. It's kind of impossible to even understand. But I feel that even men are like, separated from their bodies in another way, like our bodies are there to kind of like be traded, go from father to husband or whatever, but then men like are for the majority, they ignore their bodies are kind of irrelevant, but for like the erect phallus, everything else is irrelevant, and it's about like the providing. So if someone is like a good provider, he could be like, Weinstein on trial right now is a perfect example, like it. So in a sense that stereotype also separates them, alienates them from their physical body, and they don't know how to receive, because the woman is supposed to receive and they're supposed to kind of, give or activate. So like turning that around too is super important, in a union, and it takes like consciousness, for both, because what we don't know is off-putting at first, right? So, and I also feel like, to me, I don't know if I'm a little out there, but like to me, I feel like men should be able to wear makeup, and they should be able to wear dresses, and should be able to wear earrings, like whatever.
I love wearing eyeliner.
Right? Whatever we have access to.
Burning Man. I think that's why you see maybe some of the Burning Man and all these opportunities to dress up now and express ourselves more.
Absolutely.
But it happens largely in those.
Yeah. But in a totally natural way, like without needing a label.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like maybe in a generation, maybe like your kids will be gender neutral, and
you never know. It's up to them. I always say that. We talk about these things. We talk about what do you think they're gonna do when they're out of for college, or I'm like, it's really their choice. We get to guide them till about 18, hopefully. And then it's what they want. It's their journey. It's their soul. So we can only just support and guide and teach them the ways of the earthly realm. And that's it. So. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you each about love, but first I'm curious a little bit. So, and how did you come to this work? Were you one of these leaders?
I was, yeah. So I built tech companies for 15. Well, I built companies for almost 20 years, and mainly tech companies in New York, and was just go, working 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week, and goal after goal, and just had success on paper, had a life that looked quite successful, and wasn't feeling joy, wasn't feeling the fulfillment from that, and just ended up on my own journey that involved plant medicine, involved some other modalities, and I had such a profound shift that I just felt like I wanted to share that with the world. I actually ended up writing my story that I posted on my 40th birthday called Lost on Purpose. And first thing I'd ever written, it was a super long read, like a 25-minute article, and somehow just went viral. And I just kept getting people that were similar, or that thought they had the same, felt they had the same story, writing and saying, "This is my story. This is my story," and just got me to thinking, like, how do we, what do we do? How do we help others that are, potentially super high performing individuals that have achieved all this stuff in their lives that doesn't mean much to them? How can we bring them into a space where they can create things that will benefit the world,
right, and themselves, and give them like heart completion, fulfillment. Yeah,
absolutely. Self-love.
Self-love is like not as easy as it sounds. Real self-love, not narcissism. Real self-love is like,
and I think in many ways we're narcissists. People that are to build a startup and to be an entrepreneur, you're beating yourself
that's
up day
easier
and, day
to
and
be.
night.
Yeah, being a narcissist in today's society is easier, because like social media, all of that kind of like already pushes us in a little bit of an NPD world.
Yeah.
But, self-love, like where you own it and you mean it and you're not ashamed of it, means like letting go of perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
First of all, because it means like self-forgiveness. And that's like already hard. So, it gets complicated because our religions that we've inherited and our social conditioning, has us kind of, I feel, it has taught us to punish ourselves, to have to function from guilt or, whatever, all of those triggers that are unhealthy. So, I feel that, okay, so you were married before then?
I was, when I was in New York. And so that was around, I kind of had a bunch of things in my life kind of happen at once. I was building a startup and was asked to raise a bunch more money by my investors. And it just, at that point, I dawned that I wasn't connected to this mission. It wasn't what I wanted to continue doing. I couldn't see myself doing it for the next 5 years. And at the same time, I was, I think at that time, engaged to my ex. And, got engaged, married, divorced, all within about a couple year period. Wow. With her, and left my company, or actually I ultimately got fired because I wasn't willing to raise the money. And eventually my investors asked me to leave. And so all this stuff I'd kind of built up, my personal life, my professional life, kind of everything went away and just left me looking, okay, well, what's left and where do I go from here? And I ended up traveling for, taking off time and just going and traveling in Southeast Asia for months, and, found plant medicine and ayahuasca around that time, and just started exploring, going on yoga meditation retreats. I'd always studied Kabbalah and studied, got deeper into those studies and just explored a lot of things that sent me on my journey. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's sometimes what happens, in addiction therapy, we call it like hitting rock bottom, which sounds very dramatic, and then it doesn't really have to be so dramatic. I feel like it's just the space where you do something that you didn't think you were going to do, Like it's when you overcome your impatience, let's say, and you stay in stillness, right, in meditation longer than you ever have, and then something happens, something clicks. So it's a similar thing where you realize that all those props are part of the illusion. Yeah. And you're just as well without them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I experience this every year because I'm from Greece, so I have a home on Lesbos. So I go there every summer for like 2-3 months. And then when I come back, I don't remember anything. Like I don't remember anything that I own or what. It's all gone, which is confirmation like it's not needed. Right? What a truth. Mm-hmm. Like it's pretty extraordinary. Yeah. And how did you two meet? I'll get her version. Oh, okay.
So nicely.
Yeah, I'll take her version in a second.
Well, I was actually celibate for a year before I met her. So I was.
That's a good practice.
Yeah. So first time in my life was really just intentional about finding my partner, and just very intentional about it. Was kind of had recently moved to Miami. Was kind of living my life here. Actually, ended up at Loveburn, the local,
which is this weekend.
Yeah, it's this weekend. We're not going this year, but this was a couple years ago at Loveburn, and I actually, my best friend and business partner told me that there was the girl in my dreams was waiting down that way. And he said, go walk down there and wait. And I walked down through like these RVs and just was waiting around. And then he comes running out and then takes me onto an RV, and she was there. And she actually, as soon as I walked on, grabbed my pendant. It was very similar to this one. And actually I just gotten it tattooed. It was this design, and just got it tattooed on my arm, and she grabbed it. And I'm like, okay, wow. And we just kind of looked into each other's eyes, and there's something there. We ended up kind of losing each other that night, but connected, and I ended up throwing a Super Bowl party just so she would show up.
Using football.
I almost didn't show up.
And yeah, I kind of went from there. And it's funny, we actually found out we had met a couple times or been in similar places, multiple times recently. We actually lived 2 buildings apart, walked our dogs in the same park. But yeah, it just took kind of the right moment in time for us to connect, and we both were really at that place where we were ready to meet that partner.
Yeah, and that's a good place for sure. Like, it's pretty amazing at Loveburn. So you're more open, so you can recognize each other. Yeah,
absolutely.
How would life in Costa Rica be if you moved there? I mean, it's a form of return to nature. That's what you mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of connection to nature. There's a lot. The energy is a lot less dense. So I mean, even I was in New York, and for a while I couldn't imagine leaving New York, and then the last couple of years in New York, I'm like, I got to get out of here. And moving to Miami was like, oh my God, I'm slowing down so much. I'm not going to be able to walk and get everything I need.
Right.
And then I was downtown Miami, and there's, she's very sensitive to energy. I'm sensitive, so it's just like there's too much buzzing around. And now we moved up to Miami Shores in a home, and it's the pace is slowing. So I'm just finding myself more and more comfortable. We're finding ourselves more and more comfortable in with less happening and less noise and less energy.
Nature.
Yeah, more nature. I think the families that we've seen that are over there are looking for something different for their kids. And there's some beautiful schools like Montessori schools and Waldorf schools. And
oh, that's great.
Really alternative, education.
That's cool. Where is that? What area?
Most recently, we were in Dominical in Uvida, which we love, and Nosara is another place where there's a lot of expats and a lot of great schools. And so we actually got married in Nosara. So yeah, there's just communities really being built around removing themselves from a lot of this. And just thinking about more time in nature, more time outside, less consumerism, less TV and social media, and you can do it here too. But
I really think that it like prolongs your lifespan. I mean, I really believe it.
Well, it's a blue zone. It's one of the 5 places that people live the longest.
Same as Greece. And when I go, I have the same experience. It doesn't matter that I go every year. I mean, I've never missed it. I say the Greeks are migratory. Like come June, we all go where we were born. Whether you live in Athens or Australia or Canada or whatever, Chicago. Okay, so I always go, never missed a summer, but still the first week is a challenge. And this is my home, like I speak my language, I see my parents, right? I like breathe my wild herbs in the air. I see my sunlight, which is so much cleaner. But even so, like things are so slow, It's hard to get used to, and it's home. And I know everyone. Yeah, so like I totally get it, that every year it takes that time to go from this pace to like what should be like everybody's life pace.
Right.
Yeah, because that like is much more natural for us.
Yeah. But the fast is a distraction. We're trying to distract ourselves constantly. And, we're moving from thing to thing. And then
but what are we distracting ourselves from?
From ourselves. From really having to go in and
introspect,
be introspective, deal with whatever, trauma, concerns, issues, insecurities we have. And, you can kind of put those on hold by going through your Instagram or Netflix or diving deep into work. And I think that's what society is mainly done. It's become easier and easier to distract ourselves. It used to be, you had 3 TV stations or no TV station, and you had a job that worked 9 to 5 and ended when you left the office, and maybe you had some books or whatever, but there was.
Then you would have dinner, bed. It's like the whole routine.
I always say, and I always try to say it on the podcast too, that we need like angel investors. So maybe you're leaders.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Because my feeling is that, all the distractions are free. TV is basically free. Instagram, all of that stuff, and also normative church is more or less free. We can walk into a Catholic church and not put the money out in the basket, right? But what we're saying, and what everything that we are giving, just doesn't have the same accessibility. It's neither available to everyone for free, or kind of we need something like a shift. Like Oprah tried to do but didn't. So that you can spread this to people. To great numbers of people in some way, and for free. Like this podcast is free, and I don't take ads. I'm just doing it. It's my thing. I'm. This is my. It's part of the giving. Yeah, but I can imagine you take a Bloomberg and you take all the money he's spending on ads, and you spend it on consciousness raising, right? And you hire 100 coaches and send them out. To the countryside of America, send them to the swing states and see what happens.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. It's starting to happen. I mean, I think you see a lot of, and especially with what we're doing, and we're seeing a lot of people that have started companies and had success and maybe sold their company and don't, now they're llooking, how do we do something
useful
that benefits the world? And, it can happen faster, but there'll be a point where, as more and more they're trying to start companies in the startup world. I mean, there's startups like Headspace and Calm and meditation startups, and there's things that are generally directionally better. I think what we but a lot of the best things are things that have been with us, and you can't make money off of necessarily, or you are not necessarily going to scale like a tech company, like meditation, like nature,
nature,
plant medicines.
Plant medicine,
Like there's been stuff around for thousands of years that has done this, and it's just we've interrupted that pattern.
And we don't have the excuse of need anymore. So we're not doing it out of need, we're just doing it out of blindness, or
we manufacture need,
greed, maybe need turned into greed, something like that. I don't know.
Corporate America advertising. I mean, basically, I was in advertising and ran an agency. I mean, you basically are just creating things
need,
that people need, and they don't need, and
they think they
mostly
need,
are unhealthy and unbeneficial to people's lives, and creating worlds to sell that, and then people need those jobs and depend on those jobs, and that becomes
it's a fascinating structure when you think about it, and how far, because by now it's conceptual. I mean, the actual numbers of people who are wealth producers in the original sense, like the farmers or the teachers or whatever, the nannies or the drivers are few. And then there is so much money going around. Well, the entirety of the stock market is basically a concept.
Just trading. They're not creating any value.
You trade, but so long as your money is in play, it's not real.
Right.
So, it just has gotten to a place where it seems to me, it's about to hit a wall. Like it feels like, a form of excess that's akin to decay. It doesn't feel like it. It's way past common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we should all, go to the Costa Rica of our choice.
Yes.
And start communities, and So what's your definition of love, Jeanette?
My definition of love is love for yourself. It's, it would be loving yourself, because if you can love yourself fully as you are, then everything else will manifest and open up. It's God. It's stillness. It's loving self.
That's beautiful. I am sacred.
I am sacred. It's the I am. I am
Right.
love.
Yeah.
I am sacred.
I think that's the original name of God, at least in the...
I am that I am.
Yeah, I am that I am, I think, yeah. God told Moses, right? Moses asked, who shall I say?
Yeah.
I was like right on how they came up with that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And what about you? What's your definition of love, Brandon?
I would say unconditional acceptance. So seeing divine in the other, obviously in a partner, but ideally in everyone. The name of our company is 1Heart. So just the idea that, we are all one, and being able to see that. There's a lot that separates us. We a lot of judgment, a lot of things that come in, but being able to, when you remove the barrier and the separation, all that's left is love.
Yeah. That's beautiful too. Okay, well, I'm super heart-warmed. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of our Valentine's Day Speak Sex
it's
podcast.
It's our honor to be here. Thank you
Yeah.
for what you're doing.
This is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And everyone out there, until next week, speak sex. If
I could make love incessantly, I would be God.